Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55. Presented by Slapsticks Comedy Club. For ticket information, go to slapstickscomedy.com.
Welcome back in, Sikkim 365 Radio, the Top 5 at 5:55. Of course, today I could have done a Cowboys one and I didn't, because there's a lot to digest there, and I wanted to do a Big 12 one because there are still some more remaining questions when it comes to the Big 12. So top 5 remaining questions when it comes to conference expansion. Number 5. And Smokey's talked about part of this. Who are the TV partners and how much are they paying? That question will not get answered, guys, for another couple of years because the negotiating window isn't until 2024. But that's a huge question: is who are the TV partners? Is it just ESPN? Is there something interesting in there? What's the tier 3 rights? And how much is that number really going to be?
The question's going to be, is ESPN, who is in the middle of all this, and we know they were, how much are they going to say, you know what, it's worth it for us to make it worth it for them to continue on and make pretty good money so that we can move on with what we want to do with the one thing that's our mother lode, and that's the SEC.
Yeah.
I'm just glad ESPN didn't win the way that it was designed to initially.
Yeah, evil sometimes
I'm really
does,
glad
and then
we've
seen a little bit of evil take a couple of kicks in the joints. You know,
well, corporate titans usually win. It's nice to see when they get knocked in the ribs. Number 4, is there a second wave for the Big 12? Is there more of this later? Memphis, Boise State.
Sure seems like it.
Military
I think
academies.
so. Yeah. I don't know that, but I get the feeling that there will be. Yeah.
I mean, just based on Kirby Hocutt, what he's saying, he's Mr. Golly. I mean, has he always been that talkative?
Well,
I've seen more quotes from him in the last week and a half than I've seen his entire tenure.
I'm not saying this because I've never met him that I know of. And he was at Miami. He was a college football spokesman, and that kind of seems to give people a little bit of power surge. I'm not so sure he doesn't want to be a commissioner.
Yeah,
and maybe setting himself up for that.
I get like DeLoss Dodds vibes, or like Oklahoma,
but he has been yapping.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. It's like all of a sudden his voice is like the voice. I don't think people are looking at him the way they looked at DeLoss Dodds or, someone along those lines, or a Castiglione. But I'm just it's almost like he's talking so much that you would think he's like the spokesman or something.
Even today, Mac came on. He was on with us Wednesday, and we had to kind of eventually beat it out of him. I mean, in a fun-loving way. But, yeah, there's a little bit of that. And I think I'm not so sure there may be a story written about this one day. Behind the scenes, at some point, he talked maybe a point where Bowlesby, hey, Bob, Kirby, hey,
look, Smokey, name the Denzel movie. The loudest one in the room is the weakest one in the room.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I didn't bring that up necessarily to knock him, but it's just kind of been a little wonder of mine over the last couple of weeks or so. But yeah, absolutely. I think between his comments, Mac's comments, just other things we've heard, I don't think that they're done. I just don't know when that next step would actually begin.
Yeah. I do like the fact he was a part of this now. He got to give him credit,
but it's just like I don't.
Bob Bowlesby was supposed to be the only one and only word you heard.
That's what I'm saying. I just saw Kirby Hocutt quotes a lot when apparently nobody was really supposed to be saying anything, so it almost came across as though he was the chief spokesman, and I was like, no, you're not. No.
All right. Number 3, what happens to the conferences the AAC now goes and rates? Like, what happens to them? How do they react to this? Is there a merger of a couple of those maybe in the offing? Because if the AAC has to go and get 3 or 4 teams, then you would think that's going to put a sting on a conference. And, if there's a second wave of this for the Big 12, if you're the AAC, do you want to go after Boise State? If you might just lose
I would
them.
think I think they're already on speed dial.
You do, but but if 3 years from now Boise State gets a call, then that's.
Well, I mean, you got to do what you got to do to survive right now.
Yeah.
So if that means you got to get Boise for a rent of 3 years and then they go off into the sunshine or something, I mean, that's what you got to do. So I mean, not knowing their situation entirely, they're definitely going to get enough of a good wave of teams, but. I mean, how far does it get pulled down to where there's not enough teams for lower conferences to even exist is what you're saying. So, how many conferences, do 3 of them have to become one smaller big conference? Or
the Sun Belt, the Mountain West.
They're going to have to just come together, I think.
And a few others, you're right. Yeah.
In some ways. Yeah.
So did they do a scheduling alliance too?
They might have to, yeah.
I mean, does the Big 12 get involved in the alliance now?
Yeah.
I mean, they might not. They're obviously not needed.
When the announcement happened, there was a few little almost petals, rose petals thrown the Big 12's way, but they were trying to maybe also hey, let's let you guys take care of your business, but we're still here if, in fact, you do. We'll see.
All right. And number 2, when is playoff expansion legitimately on the table now? I think, Nicole Auerbach had a good article in The Athletic about 2026 seems to make sense because that's when all the dust can legitimately settle. That's when Texas and Oklahoma will be entrenched in the SEC.
Yep.
That means all the Big 12 teams will be entrenched. That means that the group of 5 teams that could be a part of this will have what their new looks are. So 2026 is probably the most reasonable time for the 12-team playoff expansion. And I don't believe for a minute, guys, that it's going to be 6 or it's going to be 8. It's going to be 12. Anybody who says it's not is posturing to try and get their way.
Yeah, I at this point, I'm just going to see where the chips fall when they fall. Because, there's obviously a lot of little politicking going on with this thing, like you're saying. And I don't know what to believe. Because on the one hand, you got – it's like the playoff gets shut down, and then here you got Greg Sankey, who, if you had asked before, is probably like the leader of the entire thing. Well, I didn't ever want playoff expansion. Well, wait a second. Like, what do you mean he didn't want playoff expansion?
He was on the committee with
it's
both.
Like, yeah, I was like, well, what?
He did because he wants his team, his conference, which already gets 2 out of 4.
Right.
He wants 6 out of 12.
And as while you're bringing in Texas and Oklahoma. But then he says, oh, I didn't want to do that. And, so they're all lying. They're all playing politics. And so I don't really know what to believe. But, I think you're probably right. A few years rather than the next couple, I would think.
Like, here's the deal. You cannot tell, like, college football fans that have wanted this forever. There's a 12-team playoff model. It really makes a whole lot of sense, and we're going to do it. Like, that's like telling a kid you're going to Disney World. I'm like, no, we're not. We're going to Luby's. I mean, like, no, you're not. Absolutely not. All right, number 1, how much do Texas know you owe, and when do they leave exactly? That's probably the biggest question. And I would think that's probably getting worked out now a little bit more rapidly now that the Big 12 knows who it's going to be when they're gone.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think Oklahoma and Texas are necessarily going to want to associate themselves too much with the newcomers. I mean, right? I mean, let's be honest about it. They look down on the current members. I don't think they're going to really welcome in and be open arms and really want to get down in the mud and play a bunch of football games against Cincinnati or, you know what I mean? Like, I know they played BYU in the past. That's why we know so much about Taysom Hill. But I just – not saying this as a knock on them in any way. I would just think that, like, now that there are new teams, they would want to get out even that much quicker to, especially that the Big 12 seemed to have settled themselves. Everybody would be understanding if they did it tomorrow. So I heard a lot during the time period of, like, well, OU and Texas got the money. They got the money. Well, I know Texas does. I'm sure Oklahoma could find some. But if they do, then, okay, go pay up and bon voyage after this year, and let's make this one the official final year and all that. But if not, then – it'll just make it a very, very interesting, uncertain future for, at least the next 4.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the top 5.
All right, well,